This is going to be considered spiritual talk. All right. So if you are, tuning in and you are not someone who likes to hear about the Bible, you don't want to hear any concepts of the Bible or any kind of teaching from the Bible, this lesson probably will not be for you. And so if you want to bow out now, that'll be great. But on the thumbnail, it does say, and it will say, spiritual talk. So let me go ahead and preface this. If it says spiritual talk on the thumbnail, that means that I'm going to be talking about the Bible, and we're going to be talking about spiritual matters pertaining to the Bible. All right. So now, like I said, this is your time to bow out. We are going to be talking about spiritual principles that will affect us in our lives, that will help us in our eating, our dietary, our lifestyle. It'll help us with all of these things. Okay, so we're going to look and see what the word is actually saying. For those of you who are on YouTube, hey, so glad to have you all join. Again, this is a live stream, so if you'd like to push it up just a little bit, you're more than welcome to push it up. All right, so let's go ahead and get started in this right now. So we're going to go to Matthew chapter 7. And for those of you who hopefully you can see this on my screen share, I'll put up the scripture for you so you can read it. For some of you who may not have a Bible, or for some of you who may be driving and watching this and listening to it, I'll go ahead and put that up. And also I will go ahead and read it for you as well. All right. So we're going to look at Matthew. We're going to start in Matthew chapter 7, and we're going to look at verse 13. All right, Matthew chapter 7, verse 13. And if you hear the plants and stuff in the background, that's what that is. If you hear the water and stuff flowing, that is going to be the water to our tower gardens, kind of like an aquaponic system. All right. So hopefully that's not going to be too distracting for you. But let's go ahead and let's get started. Okay? All right. So Matthew chapter 7 and verse 13. It says, "Enter in through the narrow gate, because the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction, and there are many who enter through it." Verse 14. "Because the gate is narrow and the way is hard pressed, which leads to life, and there are few who find it." So let's look at this for a second. So we're already understanding here that this gate is going to be broad. It's going to be wide. And then you have the other gate that's going to be narrow. Few people find it. So this is going to be a principle that we're going to look at like right now. This is a principle that we should be able to apply to our life. And don't forget, for those of you who I was talking to a little earlier, I want to show you something. And let me show you this. Let's look at what a principle is. Okay, that word principle in the Revelation is a very important one. A principle is an enduring truth. It is a law, a rule you can adopt to guide you in making decisions. Generally, principles are not spelled out in detail. So what we're going to be talking about right now, we're going to be talking about principles. What we're going to be discussing about the scripture is we're going to be discussing something that is a principle. All right? So it may not exactly pertain in the context and what is being said, but what is being said, you can apply that principle to your life. So since we are here and we're talking about food, healthy food for us, food that is not healthy for us, we're going to be talking about all of these different things. So now let's look at what the wide path can be. Let's look at the principle of the wide path. The principle of the wide path for us, many of us have our struggles eating. As I type up and as I see people type in, how it's so hard, trying to stay on track. and things like that. Let's look at this wide gate principle. Enter in through the narrow gate, because the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction, and there are many who enter through it. So this principle I want you to think about in our life is how we are eating. Okay, so let's go outside and let's look and walk down the street. When we walk down the street and we drive down the street and we see all of these billboards that are coming up and coming past our face, we see but we see the wide gate. There are more restaurants than we could shake a stick at. When you go into a grocery store, think about how wide the gate is. So we walk into the grocery store and there's an area where the produce is located. And you go over there where that produce is located, then you're going to find the same things that we always find, as many of us complain about, the types of fruit that we have. You're going to go and find your bananas, your apples, your pears, your oranges, all of those things that you normally find in your produce section. Unless you live in a big city, unless you live in a town that has a great amount of fruit, like I've seen it before. So, I go to some of these big cities sometime. Unless you have places like that where you can get an abundant, a variety amount of fruit, you're probably going to get a little tired of the fruit that you're eating. So you're walking into the grocery store and you're looking to the side, and there's the produce section. There's the fruit section, all right there together. So in this huge store, you realize that in this huge store, there's one section that is set aside for the produce and for the fruit. That's your narrow gate. For those of us who are trying to eat correctly, for those of us who are trying to eat the food that is good for our bodies, we're trying to go to that place, and that's where we're trying to get our nourishment from. But when you look over the rest of the grocery store, it is all dedicated to foods that are not necessarily beneficial to us. For example, there's boxed food. We know that boxed food is not beneficial to us. It's a dead food. All right? We know that, all the sweets and the high-fat food, the high-sugar food, the high-salt food, all of that food that we love to eat was over there in that section. And we loved it. But it's what actually brought our bodies to the positions that they are in right now. So we've got those different kinds of food as well. So that would be considered the wide gate. And remember, it says, because the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction, and there are many who enter in through it. I believe you all know, just like I know, most of those foods bring our body to destruction. Most of those foods bring our bodies to destruction because they are ultra processed food, high processed food, processed food. And those things really is what does not bring life to our body, but it kind of destroys our body. Why? Because of all the ingredients that's in it. The food coloring that's in it. The preservative that's in it. The seed oils that are in it. All of these things, the high sugar, the high salt, the fructose corn syrup, the corn, all of these things, if you notice, will have grain in it as well. These are things that have been converted and perverted that brings destruction to our bodies. Now, I'm going to switch something over for you, and I want you all to watch what some of these words actually mean. Okay, so we're going to read that same verse, and we're going to read it in the King James Version. All right, so it says, "Enter ye in at the straight gate." So what does this word "straight" actually mean? Well, if you look at it in the concordance, and we're going to look at what it means in the Greek, It says probably from the base G2476. It means narrow, standing obstacles, straight. Okay, so this gate is straight that he's telling us to enter through. It says for wide, let's keep going. For wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction. So let's look at this word wide. What does this word wide actually mean? It means spread out. This area that we're going through with the wide gate is spread out. It's flat. There is no obstacles there. It's a nice roaming area, and it's like everybody is flooding through it. Everybody's going there because there's no mountains, there's no hills. It's an easy walk. All right? So think about that. The road that leads to destruction, it's easy. It's not hard at all. It's very easy. But then he goes on and he tells us, wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in therein. Because straight is the gate and narrow is the way that leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. So let's look at this word narrow. The word narrow, when you look in the Strong's Concordance, it says akin to the base. It means to crowd, literally or figuratively, to afflict, narrow, throng, suffering, tribulation, trouble. Okay, do you hear that? What is the problem that many of us are having right now as we're walking out this journey of trying to live, whether you're living a fruitarian life or whether you're eating a raw plant-based lifestyle? What is some of the issues that we are having now? We're having obstacles that are getting in the way, right? Maybe we want to go out and eat with friends or family, and we see the food that is in front of us, and we have to decide for ourselves, am I just going to order a salad, or am I going to bring my own food with me to eat? You know, these are the obstacles that get in the way. It's a suffering. You know, at nighttime, I think we talked to a couple of people this week. At nighttime, when we start getting that crave, wanting something sweet, you know, instead of going and eating the ice cream. I mean, it's a struggle for us. It's a tribulation. It is a trouble. Why? Because it is trying to get us off track from what we are supposed to be doing. We know better. We know that food leads us to destruction. We know it does. But because our flesh bothers us so much, and our flesh is always knocking at the door, saying, you remember that food we used to eat. You remember that ice cream we used to eat. It's always reminding you through those cravings of what's going on. So this is a way in which we are eating this lifestyle because of what the world teaches us. This lifestyle is a narrow gate for us. And you have to be okay walking through this narrow gate because it is broad that goes to destruction. But this gate here is narrow, and it says only few find it. When you're looking and you're out in the crowd, when you're going through the grocery store, when you're out eating, when you're just out during the day, and look at the majority of the people that you see, and a lot of us are in obesity. That's because broad is the gate. We don't practice any self-control. That's why how we got ourselves. That's how I got myself to where I was. I had no self-control, no discipline. Food was my God. And I was walking down the road to destruction. So much so that I felt it in my body. I felt it in my heart. I was going down the road of destruction. And so now that we've come into this life, and I've come into this life, now I'm trying to walk the narrow road. Y'all, but there's a lot of obstacles that are in the way. You may have family that could be obstacles for you. You may have a spouse that is upset with you because here you are, you're supposed to be fixing food that everybody wants to eat, and now you're trying to make us eat that rabbit food you're trying to eat. you're trying to do what is right, and then you've got a spouse who may be coming in and they're bringing in food from a restaurant that you can't eat, but that used to be the food that you used to get down with, and you're hungry and it smells good. And that spouse really may not be helping you in what you're trying to do. So there's obstacles that we have to walk through. There are trials that we have to walk through. It is so narrow. It's a very not tight narrow. And then when you're walking through that narrow, you're bumping up against the sides. That's how narrow it is. It's a place of tribulation for us. So I don't want any of you to think that this is going to be an easy walk whatsoever, because it's not an easy walk for us at all. It's actually a tough walk in comparison to what the world is doing. But guess what? It becomes easier. The longer that you go without eating that food, it becomes so much easier for you. Just keep hanging on. Keep doing walk that narrow road. Go through the narrow gate. And I'm telling you, it will begin to subside. And after a while, you won't want that mess anymore. If you see the mess, you'll shy away from it. You won't want it at all. So be very mindful of the road in which you are walking on. Okay, let's go ahead and let's keep going, and we're going to continue in this, because one thing we got to understand is that fruit will tell on your character. Don't think that it will not let the world know about your character, because it will. And as a matter of fact, I can tell you that it will, because the scripture actually says it. I'm going to read that Matthew 7:14 again in the scriptures version. It says, because the gate is narrow and the way is hard pressed, which leads to life, and there are few who find it. And that hard press means the way is afflicted. All right, y'all. So if we really want to make this change in us, if we really want to make this change in our life, we are going to go through some afflictions for a while until you're able to get hold of your eating habits, until you're able to get under control your flesh, and you begin to make it do what you want to do. All right. Verse 15 in Matthew 7. It says, but be aware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are savage wolves. Yeah, this is a very good one too. Be aware of those people who come to you in sheep's clothing. Hey, you know what, man? You ain't got to eat like that. I mean, you don't have to eat fruit. I mean, that's bad for you. You need to eat something else. You need to eat you some meat. You need to eat you some protein. Be careful of these people who come before you telling you that you need to quit eating the way you're eating. See, they're upset because you're eating the way that you're eating, and they're eating the way they're eating. And you actually are judging them by the way in which you eat. You ain't got to speak it. You're judging them by the way in which you eat, because they know what you're doing is right. All right? They know what you're doing is right. Verse 16. Listen, it says, by their fruits you shall know them. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes, or figs from thistles? So every good tree yields good fruit, but a rotten tree yields wicked fruit. A rotten tree yields wicked fruit. A good tree is unable to yield wicked fruit, and a rotten tree to yield good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. So then, by their fruits you shall know them. So then, by their fruits you shall know them. Your fruit that you are producing from your tree is going to tell the world about your character. I'm going to use myself as an example because I don't want to pinpoint, other people. Let me just use myself as an example. So my fruit that was hanging from my tree was telling the world he's undisciplined. He's undisciplined and he cannot control his eating habit. That's number one. Number two, he has no self-control. He's got no self-control. He can't control what he's doing. He has to listen to what his stomach says. So he's listening to what his stomach says. So what does he do? He goes out and he buys his ho-hos. He goes out and he buys his pizza. He goes out and he buys his fried chicken. He goes out and he eats whatever it is that he really wants to eat. And that's what he's consuming. That is what I was consuming. So my fruit. Now, what was my fruit? My fruit that was being shown was my fat that was actually hanging over my belt. That was my fruit. What is my fruit? My fruit was the puffiness in my face. That was my fruit. My fruit was that I could not control what I was eating. And I tell you, I could not control what I was eating because when I saw food, it was like my hands would start to shake. I mean, I'm shaking. And if I purchased the food, so if I went and bought the pizza, bought it back out to my vehicle where I was driving, I mean, I'm literally opening up the box and I'm like shaking while I'm opening the box because I'm so ready to eat that food. And what's even worse with it is I'm eating the pizza, and once the pizza is all gone, I halfway don't remember it. Why? Because dopamine is firing all off in my brain. I'm excited because of the food that I'm eating that I literally almost do not remember eating the food that I purchased. Now, I know none of y'all probably ever went through that. That's probably just me that is going through that, or that was going through that. But that was my experience in dealing with the food. So I'm before people, and people can see my fruit that is hanging from my tree because it was exposing the type of tree that I was. The fruit was exposing my character of what was going on in our bodies. And that's why many of us, we have to be careful. The foods that we eat becomes our God to us. It becomes our idol to us. And it leads us down the road of destruction. We will go stand before the Most High one day and we will die in His presence, the second death, because we could not control our mouths. We could not control our stomachs. It was a road that leads to destruction. Believe me, I've been there. I know how it feels. For those of you who are struggling right now, I understand what you're going through. I've been there. I've done it. And sometimes when we mess up, we use that as an excuse to continue messing up. We use that. And sometimes we have to step back and say, okay. I know that if I eat this food right here, I know this food because it's dead, it's processed, full of sugar, full of salt, full of fat. I know that it's going to destroy my body. It's going to destroy me. And then you have to think about the narrow gate. Okay, if I walk this narrow gate, instead of picking up this pizza, if I pick up this orange, or if I pick up this plum and I eat that, it's going to be tough. It's tribulation because I want this over here, but I know it's going to lead me to the road of life. I'll have life abundantly. So that's why you have to be sure. Compare the principles of the Bible. Compare it to your life. You know, I've got a whole lot more that I could go on, and I'm not going to go any further. I mean, just this point right here is enough. I'm I'm going to stop right here, and I'm going to make the next section. I'm going to do another video for that. We're already in about almost a good 30 minutes into this anyway. So you've got a decision that you're going to have to make in your life. I have a decision that I'm going to have to make in my life. Am I going to walk down and enter in through the gate that is broad, that leads to destruction? Or am I going to enter in through that narrow gate that leads to eternal life? Am I going to walk through that narrow gate that actually is going to help me while I'm here in this body? It's going to lead me to long life. It's going to lead me to good health. It's going to lead me to good energy. That road of destruction is going to take the wind out of your sails. You're going to be walking and you can't breathe. You're going to be buying clothes instead of buying a size down. You're going to be buying a size up, which is telling you you're not doing such a good job. And then that's going to feed you even further and fall into the pit even further, because now you're depressed. And because you're not eating what you're supposed to eat, you don't know how to deal with that depression. But on the side of walking through the narrow gate, depression goes away. I don't know if you all have seen any of those videos that I talked about, but depression is metabolic. Depression comes from the food that we consume. Anxiety becomes from the food. It's the road of destruction. Anxiety comes from the food in which we consume. And many of you all are experiencing the goodness of eating raw and eating fruit now. Many of you are. You're seeing how now you're feeling better. Your head is not as cloudy. You're able to make good decisions now. You're able to deal with the stress of life because you're able to use your brain capabilities. You don't have chemicals that are in your body that is clouding your judgment, that is causing you to focus on yourself. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop right here. I know this is a lot, and this has to be dissected, okay? Go back and read Matthew chapter 7, all right? Matthew chapter 7. Very important that you read that. And as a matter of fact, when you read that, let me tell you what to read it to. Because I'm going to go ahead and give you some more stuff. Read all the way down to Matthew 7:29. Okay, we're going to get into the Matthew 7 and 29. We're going to come back through this and we're going to break each one of these down. And I think it's going to be very beneficial for you. Okay, so I'm going to try to do a live every week, and I'll let you know when I can't do it. I'm going to try to do a live every week at about 6 o'clock, 6:30. I'll set it up and let you know before time. All right, so expect to do this every week, every Sunday at about 6 o'clock in the evening. We're going to go through some biblical principles of how we should be eating. And, you know, I really do hope that this is like awesome for you guys. I really do hope that, you know, you really get something out of it. You're able to take it and you're able to internalize it, and you're able to really just allow it to affect your life, so that this week that we're just new week that we just started, this should be used to pave your way to decide what gate you're going to go through this week in your eating habits. All right. Hey, I hope this is encouraging to you. I don't want this to be something that puts you down. No, it encourages you to walk through that narrow gate. I believe you can do it. And why do I believe that you can do it? Because I did it. All right. So listen, I have eaten raw fruits and vegetables since March. I've seen what it has done to my body. I know how it has affected me. I can't go back. I'm a lifer. From that point on, I chose to be a lifer, eating fruits and vegetables. And that's how I'm going to live the rest of my life, so that I can have a long life. All right. Hey, you all take care. This will be uploaded onto YouTube, so you can go back and watch it as many times as you want to. But I really hope that this helps you. Remember, this is a principle that you can apply to your life. The Bible is full of principles, and we're going to start breaking those principles down. And I really do hope that all of this was good for you. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you got something out of it. And I really pray that you all really are able to change the way that in which you wish to. And I know that you can. All right. So we're going to go ahead and close out here, and I will see you all on the next video. All right. You all take care.